Hi everyone and welcome to the PTC Christmas podcast for 2017. I'm James and I'm joined by Sam.
Hello.
We have Liam.
Hello.
And Chris.
Evening.
So gentlemen, it is the eve of the festive season. First of all, how's everyone doing?
I'm good, thank you. You?
Yeah, not too bad. There's still too many games to play than currently time exists to play them, but that's a good problem to have, I think.
Yep, I know that feeling.
The best problem.
So a few weeks back, we had the Xbox One X finally released, one of our frequented topics on this podcast over the months. But now it's finally here. It's finally right next to me on the desk. What does everyone think, those who've picked it up?
It's heavy.
It is.
This is true.
I nearly dropped it, actually, when I held it
Really?
out on the flat of one hand and then took a picture with the other hand, sent to my brother, and nearly dropped it. I didn't.
Oh dear. That's not good. I would say that would teach you, but I doubt that.
No, probably not.
You and your Twitter, showing off.
I wasn't sure when I got mine at first because I didn't know if I regretted it because I don't have a 4K TV and it just sat in the box for 2 days because I was waiting for internet to be sorted at the house, so I couldn't do anything with it. And I was just sitting looking at the box, wondering about sending it back, trying to justify in my head, do I really need it? But yeah, when internet came, I just unboxed it and there was no going back.
So how have you found it then without a 4K TV?
I've been
pronounced, or
I've probably had to look for more reasons to go, that's cool, rather than just being able to plug in a 4K TV and notice it straight away. I played Gears 4 in campaign in 60 frames, and that was kind of fun. Ghost Recon Wildlands, that was one of the ones I wanted to test, and that runs a lot better on the standard Xbox One. There was quite a bit of screen tearing and just choppy frame rates, and it's really smooth on the X. And I don't know if that's because maybe they released a performance patch. I don't know if it's across all platforms that it just runs better, because it didn't run great, to be honest, in the first place. But in my head, it's because of the X, and that makes me feel good about purchasing.
Well, it's definitely X supported because it appears in the. I don't know if you've seen, but when you're on the My Games and Apps section of the Xbox One home menu, you can, in the top right corner, I think, you can. There's a drop down. You can change it from all games to Xbox One X enhanced games to see which ones are supported. And Ghost Recon Wildlands is on that list, so I would say that's probably reasonable to assume it's the X enhancement that's done that.
Yeah, it looked noticeably better in to me anyway, even on a standard 1080p HD TV. So that was nice, and I'm kind of glad I got the Project Scorpion because I like limited edition things. So yeah, the regret's gone away now.
There we go. Therapy session for Liam. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. And from Sam, from your point of view, having had a bit of PS4 Pro time, or plenty of PS4 Pro time by comparison to us anyway, but and comparing the two, how do you find that?
See, I haven't actually played that much stuff on the X. I think I've only played 3 games on it. Assassin's Creed Origins, very impressive. The other one was the Kinect Disney game, Pixar Rush. I know, but that looks
a quality title.
Looks okay. Yeah, that looks okay. It's actually it's an alright game. It's like a endless runner platformer thing, but it's not too bad. Right. But it looks okay. That's full 4K HDR. I'm trying to rack my brains for what the other one was. It's not coming to me. But anyway, so Assassin's Creed Origins looks incredible, but I upgraded from an Xbox One S, not from the original. So the S already had that slight, it is a very slight edge over the original Xbox, plus it has HDR support. So I was already playing it with, again, that slight edge over the original Xbox and HDR. So the difference wasn't night and day. And I would still say that the likes of Uncharted 4 and Uncharted The Lost Legacy on PS4 Pro do look better. and Assassin's Creed Origins on the X, but then those are first-party Sony games, so they will be, the real showpieces as opposed to a third-party game on Xbox. What I would really need to do is try like a Gears of War 4, but I just haven't had the chance yet. I've been playing a lot of VR for review.
Fair enough. I mean, from my point of view, obviously I did the review, but I think even like the initial impressions, I'd agree. There's not a night and day difference there even in 4K and in all the bells and whistles. It honestly took me about 2 or 3 days to really feel like I had a handle on the settings on my TV, that I was actually getting the full, the full experience, so to speak. The Xbox didn't make it easy for me at all, which I thought was really weird. That it didn't kind of guide you through that in a kind of specific tutorial way to actually show off what it had to offer, really, I suppose.
It has the insects thing, but it took me days to find that, though. I think I read it in your review when I was editing your review.
And I only saw it
insects.
And I only saw it because I happened to pass it on like Twitter or something like that. So again, it's not pushing it in your face. I saw like slightly afterwards that it was ending up on one of the dashboard circles, the squares, to highlight it a little bit more. But yeah, it seems really weird to not, it would have been so easy to just put that on and say, welcome to your new Xbox One X. Here's a fancy interactive video thing where you can see, what it has to offer. And as I said in the review, for me, it didn't work like it should have done, because all I could do was turn 4K on and off. I couldn't turn HDR on and off and stuff like that.
That's unfortunate, because HDR made an enormous difference on that.
Yeah. I think that's the thing. So from my point of view, I'm quite used now to watching particularly Netflix and Amazon video on HDR 4K. Some stuff's just HDR, some stuff's a mixture, whatever. But particularly the HDR stuff, you do notice it. And I think you're right in the sense that the fact that you couldn't turn that on and off, you don't get that full experience of the real kind of massive difference. But when I started to play some of the games, so Wildlands that you mentioned, Liam, when I was playing that with 4 people, the performance was better. I totally agree with that. But equally, just looking at the textures and stuff like that, you could see a noticeable difference compared to what it was previously. I think it might be partly because I haven't played the game for a little while as well to kind of come back and get into it, but it did kind of have a shine. Whereas even going back into Wolfenstein and stuff like that, which I'd just been playing recently, I don't know, it didn't have the same impact. But I think all things considered, it's kind of set me up for another few years of Xbox, and so I'm pretty happy at a kind of the benchmark, and hopefully similar to when they release a normal inverted commas new console, there'll be further optimization stuff going forward, kind of thing, which makes new releases make a lot more of a difference necessarily.
See, I think Microsoft really needs some showpiece exclusives. So next year, Sony has the likes of Spider-Man and God of War and Days Gone. All this sort of stuff that's coming out that is sort of aimed directly at sort of being a visual showpiece. And I'm sure they'll all look fantastic on the Pro. But
yeah,
Xbox,
I'd agree.
Not so much. I mean, Sea of Thieves, Crackdown, they're more sort of stylized graphics. And again, I'm sure they'll look great, but they're not going to be almost photorealistic. I don't think they're doing, and State of Decay as well, even that's not the best looker, is it?
The real visual showpiece is on Xbox One X is actually Forza 7 that I just haven't played and I won't play really. But I've seen plenty of like footage and video stuff from like Digital Foundry and whoever else. And you really do get that impression when they start zooming in on the details. I thought there was a video which they did actually about Halo 4 and the campaign there, and then I played Halo 4 in the kind of updated version, and you could really notice it again because it had been pointed out, and that's the problem. Is it at the end of the day, because I knew what I was looking for, I could see the difference. But like you say, Liam, it's not as pronounced as you might expect. And I think even when you do get to a 4K TV as well, you won't be like, oh, well, so this is what they were talking about. It'll be more kind of like, Oh, okay. But
Yeah. Wildlands was just because it bugged me how sort of poorly it ran for how on the Xbox One. So I noticed that it looked better and ran better. But yeah, other stuff. I mean, I play Xbox a lot. It's my main console. So getting the best one out there just seemed like a natural step, really, when they released it. Even if I don't have 4K, I'm 4K ready, I suppose. My next purchase will have to be the TV.
like a new TV on expectantly waiting on the edge, like please.
Yeah, buy everything else first, then the TV.
And Chris, from your point of view, as a bit of an outsider to this conversation, how's it been for you? Kind of, I know you've mentioned before about being finding difficult to justify. Do you feel at this point now, hearing our kind of not being blown away impressions, that you know it's a bit more bearable?
Yeah, after reading your review, I thought it's definitely something I can wait for. Nothing, if like you say, it was really pronounced differences and it was maybe a bit cheaper, I would have bought day one. But for now, I'm happy to wait. I think it's a good investment, as all first-party games going forward will look much better on the X. But for now, I'm happy to wait till the price drops, really.
Yeah, I was surprised that the PS4 Pro, well, not that surprised, but the fact that they cut down the PS4 Pro quite substantially for Black Friday this year, actually. Because, I mean, it's obvious to compete, but when you look at the price difference between the two, it's mental.
Well, PS4 Pro sold the best at Black Friday. I don't know if you saw the figures, but it beat Switch.
I did.
And Xbox.
I was well in on the on my day job of seeing what the most popular products were, and it was definitely PS4 bundle with FIFA and Gran Turismo Sport. So yeah,
Gran Turismo Sport went dirt cheap as well. It was like £19 or something.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It only just came out. But so they were really aggressive with that, because I noticed the day of the Xbox One X's release, I was seeing more advertising for PS4 Pro than that. They really sort of counter advertised, went in hard on it.
I've been seeing a lot more PS4 Pro adverts. Since its release, actually, I've probably not seen any Xbox One X ones. It's all been PlayStation adverts over here, especially for the Pro.
Yeah. They have always been a bit harder with their advertising in this generation, at least. But I think, it's a lot more pronounced. They just play a harder game. Microsoft kind of sit there and come to us, whereas PlayStation are like plucking your attention from the crowd. I think
to an extent, though, that shows that that shows a degree of worry.
Yeah,
that they don't like not being able to claim, to have the most powerful console on the market, which they have the whole generation, because the 4 was more powerful than the 1. And then obviously the Pro was more powerful than the S, but now the X is more powerful than the Pro. And I don't think they like that.
They had all the keywords plastered at the end, like 4K HDR, just thrown on there with the little sort of asterisks next to it, just in case, but no one's going to have time to read those.
And that's the thing. I think that, and that's absolutely the point for me. When you talk about dynamic 4K on a billboard, people aren't going to know the difference between dynamic 4K, inverted commas, and true 4K, or whatever the hell they're calling it for Xbox, and I think that as a result, they've put in, like I said, in the review as well, I'm plugging the review a lot for some reason. But the fact that they've put so much design and time and effort into making a beautiful hardware machine is unfortunately wasted in a way. It's almost like, you think back to kind of smartphones and stuff like that, just starting out around the kind of iPhone time, where there were companies that did phones that looked like an iPhone first and as powerful phones first, but they didn't have the style, they didn't have the, the user friendliness, stuff like that. And you feel like Xbox has kind of made that mistake in the sense that they've targeted it for a real kind of technology crowd. And there's, I guess, just not as much of that from a critical mass point of view to make it a mass market machine. And I guess maybe that's the point. Who knows?
Well, I think Phil Spencer said he's well aware that the Xbox One S will continue to far outsell the X. Then it's sort of pitched at the, as cliche as it is, the most hardcore of gamers. He's not expecting this to be the one that parents rush out and buy for the children at Christmas.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. That's actually what I've seen more adverts for is the S, online and TV as well.
Yeah, I think this is less so we're going to save the Xbox One and more so we're going to serve our current user base and make them happy and make them stick with us next generation, and then we'll worry about, bringing some of the people who jumped ship to PlayStation back.
Do you think it will ever have exclusive games just for the X?
No. It's the Xbox One X. It's part of the Xbox One family, just like the 2DS doesn't have exclusive games and the 3DS doesn't have if I can get it out, exclusive games.
But they do have the new exclusive games, so they won't be some aren't playable on the older version of the 3DS.
I suppose that sort of blurs the lines. I mean, did Nintendo say specifically that they wouldn't do that though? Because Microsoft have said that they don't plan to.
I think what you will see more is that the kind of the visual differences will become more extreme. So like you have, between the end of the 360's life and the beginning of the Xbox One's life, there wasn't much of a difference. But obviously further away from that you go, it would start to diverge, So you'd end up with a relatively rudimentary looking version, similar to how you get like ultra spec PC version versus, console version or even Switch version in some cases now as well. You look at like the representation of Doom and how well that's been, repackaged into a far less powerful machine than a kind of ultra PC. And yeah, just how effective that can be.
I was thinking actually about the sort of the gulf in console quality graphics now. So, and the extra work developers must have to do, because I played last night is it 9 Parchments? The sort of like a twin stick magical shooter game set in the Trine universe. I played the demo for that on Switch, and it looked nice and all in handheld mode, but I would miss things like there are collectible chests, and because of the low resolution, they'd sort of blur into the background and I would miss them. But I know that is an Xbox One X enhanced game, so I thought in 4K, blown up big on a TV, these chests are going to be super pronounced, and this game is going to be gorgeous. But I thought these developers have got to go, from muddy chests that blur into the background to ultra sharp chests kind of thing. There's a huge gulf in display there, and I think this is possibly the first generation where, it has been that pronounced, sort of from the low end to the high end. Generally, everything's sort of much of a muchness. There are slight, differences that you've sort of got to watch a Digital Foundry video to actually, and have them pointed out to you to actually notice.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Definitely. The other big talking point that's been going on in gaming of late, as much as Microsoft would have loved all of the attention, I'm sure, is very negative attention, particularly around EA on account of the implementation of microtransactions into Battlefront 2. Now, we've talked about this on the site a few times, and it's been everywhere for certainly the last couple of weeks since Battlefront came out in particular. But even in the run-up, that kind of first week when EA Access members were kind of going a bit mental. Now that the dust's settled a little bit, how's everyone feeling about it all? Does it put you off Battlefront 2?
Yes, I think so. I got the initial Battlefront on release day, and probably by this point 2 years ago, I was still playing the original Battlefront from release day, which was the 17th. So about 2 weeks later, I was still playing it every day religiously, hadn't touched another game since. And this time around, I haven't even really considered picking the sequel up. So that's, a pretty enormous difference in my approach to the game. But I think disabling the loot boxes was the right way to go. But it's definitely only happened because the Disney CEO rang and sort of gave EA a bollocking and told them, "You're muddying our name," essentially. So I don't think EA would have done it. And I don't know if you've heard that today their latest defense is that they didn't want to... the reason that loot boxes weren't cosmetic only is that they didn't want to muddy the canon.
I saw that.
Yeah, so they said that
very poor excuse.
No one wants a costume shader on Darth Vader or whatever. But again, I know I've outed myself in the past. I've not seen Star Wars, so I'm just quoting a comment I saw here. For example, Rey can be used in a map that's from 30 years before she was born, and then she can be fighting alongside Darth Vader and Darth Maul. How does that fit into the canon? But then you won't let Darth Vader wear a different costume.
I think it was a poor defense.
Yeah, a BS defense.
Canon arguments are rife among the Battlefront forums of people saying that you can't have a droid rolling; they never roll, and things like that. So there's lots of things that aren't canon from the films, I suppose, in the game. So it's a pretty bad excuse if that's what they're going with.
I think a pink Darth Vader will be equally as stupid. Yeah, I'll not be playing Battlefront 2. It's not just the loot box thing, really. It's definitely put us off a little bit.
See, I haven't even played the trial, is the thing. I've got that 10-hour EA trial. And again, just for comparison, the original game, I'd played the 10-hour trial by launch day, got the game on launch day, carried on from that save, carried on playing. Didn't look at another game, even though it's obviously a busy release season in mid to late November. And again, this time, it's just totally passed me by, and I've not missed it.
It has put me off. I've been playing a bit of the trial, and I thought I'd just burn through it because I loved the original reboot as well. But I've still got around 7 hours on there because I played a bit of multiplayer, and not being able to pick the star cards that you want, having it random from just the loot boxes is very annoying. I bought one. I was just saving up points just to see how long it would take me to get nearer to like the higher end heroes that you got to unlock with however many thousand credits it is. But I was playing the game without star cards, so I went and bought a loot box and got a random card that I couldn't use for the class that I wanted. I got it for the specialist. I never played a specialist, the sniper, so it was pretty annoying that I spent a load of credits and didn't get anything for how I want to play. Yeah,
I think the fact that it's based on a game which I guess the biggest problem for this is that isn't that effective to begin with. I suppose that was the problem for me, in the sense that the new things were putting the campaign in and messing about with multiplayer, a few modes out, few modes in, and lots more content in terms of more maps, more characters and all that sort of stuff. And I guess the loot box element of it just really shone a light on the elements which were already weaker, I think, from that point of view, which is why it didn't score as well as probably it should have done, in my opinion, when you're going from a reasonably good, if limited, initial release, as you say, which both of you two were kind of very happy with. I suppose the canon argument is a weird one, like you say, with the different time periods and stuff already. I mean, I get the kind of visual kind of consistency that they're going for, and that they talk about, and even in that press release today, about how they would be checking stuff with George Lucas or whoever around from Disney or whoever to make sure it all kind of fits in. But I guess if the game itself is not that solid without those sorts of trinkets thrown in, I suppose, then it's not going to change many people's minds. I'm not sure what the end game is with it all, really, apart from just more money.
I would disagree on that. It was built. You're sort of saying it was built on a shaky foundation. Again, as I've already said, I love the original. The issue for me is that the changes they made, because I have played a little bit of it, but it was the open beta, I think, and I only played maybe 3-4 matches. The issue for me was the changes that they made were all negative. Again, obviously, the whole loot box thing and the loadouts and the star cards, that was all just a bottle ache. But then combat was way slower. I preferred the sort of faster, more frenetic arcade action.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, it was way
totally
slower,
agree.
but to the point of just feeling sluggish. It wasn't even like I prefer Battlefield to Call of Duty. I can live with a slower pace, but just felt sluggish and awkward.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and that's the thing. It's not so much the basis in terms of the original game that was shaky. It was more the fact that as you say, the kind of how they've moved things forward in their eyes as kind of just weakened the kind of the structure around which the loot boxes is kind of thrown on top of, and it's made it all a little bit less easy to swallow, I suppose. But in terms of the phenomenon more generally, so there's been, again, plenty of coverage, but the the latest thing has been, Belgium have been talking about it, Australia has been talking about it, the EU and the UK government is, well, not the government, but some sort of trade body or whatever within the UK has been talking about gambling and loot crates and all this sort of stuff. And I'd be interested to see what you guys think about how, from your point of view, first of all, do you have an opinion as to whether you think they're gambling or not?
Well, I actually picked up a packet of football stickers in the shop the other day because I'd seen that comparison that it's like saying Pokemon cards are gambling because you don't know what you're going to get, or when you're buying them, you could argue that is a form of gambling for kids because you're buying it and you don't know what you're going to get. You could get 5 of the same player or whatever that you've already got for your collection. I think, I don't know, gambling just seems to be the way that they're just going to get rid of it now that that term's being thrown about. It doesn't look good, especially in like a Disney owned franchise. What was it that the Hawaiian politician said is that they didn't tolerate cigarettes being targeted towards kids. They're not going to tolerate with this. I think it's gone too far now. I can't see them coming back to gaming in the form that they were.
See, it's very easy for me to say because I don't have that addictive personality. I'm never drawn to loot boxes. I mean, obviously it galls me in Battlefront that it's affecting my gameplay experience, but if it's cosmetics, as it should be, I'm never drawn to purchasing them. If I earn them from leveling up and I get something cool out of them, great. If I never get anything good, you're not tempting me to buy them to get the good stuff. I'm not interested. But again, that's easy for me to say. There are other people that are drawn into it and spend a lot of money on it and possibly regret doing that if they don't have that money to spend, which is, I don't know if you've seen, but the game Clicker Heroes 2 has decided, and the developers admit, that they're going to be less successful as a result, but they'll have a lighter conscience for it, so they're doing it. But the original game
I did see that. Yeah.
They call them whales.
Yeah.
Like dolphins and whales, but basically, depending on how much you spend, you get categorized as some sort of fish. But so they basically said they had people who spent, say, 10 grand on their game, which is great for them. But if that is causing that person harm, essentially, because they are hopelessly addicted, and they can't stop spending the money on it, they've said they would rather not have that 10 grand. That's, it's dirty money. So they have said, we are aware that we will make less money, selling our clicker game because I think they're selling it for it's like 30 quid or something, which is ridiculous, because I thought, I'll have a look at Clicker Heroes 2 and see about sort of supporting the practice. But when it was £30 for a game where you just mash buttons, no, sorry. But
some would say that that's all games.
Well, yeah, but when it's the same button, and I think I haven't played the original, but from what I gather, it's like Cookie Clicker or something. You just mash X.
Right.
See, that's interesting, because I suppose, yeah, there's no limit on what people can spend on these things. Maybe you'll see games companies trying to
possibly
look like they're trying to handle it better, like saying, are you sure you want to keep buying this? Like you get in bookies when you play on the roulette machines, and it says, when the fun stops, stop. It's like the big warning saying, like, stop all the time.
It sounds like that's from personal experience.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
I've never seen that sign.
Oh, yeah. It's all. I mean, it's all the time on there, just popping up as an advert. Not like saying you need to stop right now, but as a suggestion. I'm wondering if developers will go down that route, just putting limits on how much you can spend in a day. Because 10 grand on a. I mean, if you've got the money to spend, then why not? But yeah, like you said, some people don't, and I can see why you would be tempted to buy loot boxes. I got one in Call of Duty World War II, and it gave me it said a super rare uniform for my character when I'm playing on the American side in multiplayer games. And that was very cool, getting it. And you see everyone else lining up, and it's right there in your face with everyone in their cool, unique uniforms. And if I was just sitting there in the standard one, it wouldn't bother me that much, but it was a nice buzz getting that epic, the big purple label around it or whatever, saying this is really rare and you've got it. But I haven't had a drop since. I think that's just one of the ones you get at the beginning to sort of ease you into the system and, well, I suppose tempt you into it.
I'm not sure if I would say the gambling as such, but I can definitely say the potential for people getting addicted to them or spending too much. I did read a thing recently on wheels. It's in the big spending wheels, and I think it said a lot of people were spending under £50 a time, but it was sort of every week, every month, and they didn't realise how much it was building up.
Yeah, there's been cases as well of kids playing these games, so the parent's card is connected to their iOS account, to buy apps, but then the child doesn't realise, because there's no parental controls on there, and the parent doesn't realise that the kid is just tapping away, and every time they're doing it, because a lot of these games have cooldowns where you have to stop playing and then come back to it, unless you pay a fee to sort of bypass that cooldown and keep playing. And the kid, every time that cooldown pops up, is of course just clicking away to carry on, not realizing. And then the parent gets the bill at the end of the month or whatever and sees, and goes and says to them, how the hell have you managed to spend all this money? And then the parent is stuck in the situation that they need to try and get a refund on that.
Yeah, I think now all the attention's on it, and I think the gaming industry is going to have to try and sort of regulate itself before, government starts stepping in. I think they'll want to do that first before they're being told what they can and can't do. So I think, I don't think it's going to, I think it'll change how we see it now, where it's just in there, and like in Star Wars Battlefront 2, where you basically have to either grind for them or buy them. I don't think we're going to see that anymore after all this.
Yeah, it is troubling to an extent at what the potential fallout of it could be, just in the sense that it again puts out a really negative connotation around gaming into the mass media and all this sort of stuff. And you're like, ugh, no, we didn't need that, but thanks. But hey.
Part of me worries, though, what will replace loot boxes. So if this does slay the loot box, so to speak, something is going to replace it. Developers are still going to monetize their games in other ways than the base cost and DLC. They're still going to put microtransactions in, so it's going to be for something.
I think it might be like how it was I remember in Battlefield 3, I think it was, you could just do the shortcut option for people who didn't have time. I think you might see more of those things in which just unlock all the weapons and kit for the assault class in one go, like £12 or whatever, £10.
I mean,
I think we might see more of that coming. Oh, they still do? Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe other games will start doing it as well. I think if there's like a blanket ban on loot boxes, which I don't think there will. I think there's too many regions and too many people involved for anyone to get some sort of unified law saying you can't do that anymore.
It has been quite a widely reported phenomenon, so we'll just have to see how it all progresses, really. It's all a little bit unclear. But what we can be sure about is that Christmas is on the way, which means it's almost the end of the year. And we've all had, hopefully, time to play some games this year, which has been fun, hopefully, mostly. And one thing which I thought would be interesting to ask you guys about was which game or game experience, whatever it might be, has been the most surprising, the most unexpected.
South Park and the Fractured Butthole, which is a great title to say out loud now, especially on a recording. That surprised me because I'm not really into those kind of like XCOM style games, Mario Rabbids, where the more tactical things of moving characters one at a time, like turn-based stuff. I do enjoy it to an extent, but I really don't have much patience for it. It kept me hooked, and I actually found myself really enjoying the combat. Not just because of the stupid jokes and ridiculous moves, which probably did help quite a lot. But it was, I knew it was going to be funny, but I was really pleased to see that it kept me hooked for a turn-based strategy RPG kind of thing, which is not really my forte at all.
I'm going to cheat and say a few games. The Lego series, I don't know why they do it, but Warner Brothers started sending me all the Lego games that come out without me asking for them. Not complaining, but...
Thank you, Warner Brothers.
Yeah. But they're good. I haven't played any since like the original Lego Star Wars and Lego Indiana Jones, and I mean, those were all right for the time, but they very quickly got super formulaic and very boring as a result. So I had a lengthy break from them, came back with Lego Ninjago, was surprised at how good its open world was and its side missions and things were. and it's got a pretty great combat system. It's got like quite frenetic, sort of like Platinum Light combat. So I enjoyed that. And then they sent over Lego Marvel 2. Again, if you're a Marvel fan, you will enjoy that. There's so many nods to both the cinematic universe and the comic books, as well as basically keeping that same sort of strong base that Ninjago had. And then keeping with the sort of child-friendly theme, I tried the demo of Knack 2 when that came out on PlayStation, just for shits and gigs, pretty much. But enjoyed it. So I thought, I think at the time, the original Knack was about £4 on offer on PSN to download. So I grabbed it, played it on hard mode, which it's got to be on hard mode because it was actually hard, and it was a fun challenge. Went straight from that. I purchased Knack 2, went straight into Knack 2. Really enjoyed Knack 2 as well. So Knack's sort of like the maligned ginger-haired stepchild of the Sony's PlayStation exclusive lineup. But I like Knack. Knack's all right.
So confirmed, Sam is biggest fan of Knack.
Possibly. Possibly.
You've probably just greenlit
I think
a third entry in the series just by
a guy on Twitter, because I wrote a thing on Knack 2, and it was in Japanese, so I'm only going off the Twitter translate, the Twitter translate function. But
that's definitely what they should call it.
I translated his thing, and it was like all caps, like someone outside Japan cares about Knack 2 or something like that.
Oh,
yes, I do, friend. Yes, I do.
You're the Western
bringing
market.
the world together.
That's it.
For me, probably Assassin's Creed Origins. It's
Actually, that's a good shout.
yeah. I thought you would mention.
You can't have everything, Sam.
Yeah, I'll have that one too.
It is. They've completely changed it, but it's still got the Assassin's Creed DNA. But we're just bits added in from Far Cry and elements of Ghost Recon Wildlands, and it's a lot better than any Assassin's Creed game has the rights to be.
It's got a lot of Breath of the Wild in it as well.
I was probably pleasantly surprised to find out that COD World War II is actually quite good, because a lot of my friends who had bought it, I mean, they got their advertising spot on. It's like, COD's going back to World War II, get involved, get the gang back together. And a lot of people I know who hadn't bothered playing Xbox for ages are now getting COD World War II and going back and playing it. So I sort of reluctantly got it because a few of them had got it. I thought, oh, that would be nice, start playing together again, just like the adverts. And yeah, it's really, really a lot of fun. And I've been playing it more than them, and especially War Mode. I was really surprised at that. It sounded like, well, it is basically sort of just like a rip-off of Battlefield 1's operations, but it just works on a much smaller scale, and it's like much shorter battles. Like it can only be about 12 minutes matches or something like that, but it was really, really good. I was very surprised by that.
Do people play the objective in that war mode, or is it just COD deathmatch basically with an objective that everyone ignores?
They do, because basically you can't really, on some of them, you can't go anywhere or do anything. You're pretty much forced to play the objective. If especially if you're like escorting a tank, you can sit there and just shoot each other, but it's going to be over really quickly if you're not bothering to try and move the tank forward. And it sort of funnels you down into like sort of choke points where you have to, focus on what's right in front of you and keep moving the objective. And what I thought was a nice touch is they don't bother putting in your death. So there's no kill death ratio to worry about. It tells you your kills because it's COD, it has to, but it doesn't matter how many times you're dying if you're playing the objective. You just keep running in there and just get it done.
That's good.
I'm learning a lot about the power of advertising on this podcast.
Yeah, I'm very susceptible to advertising.
So there you go. If you want to influence Liam, just make a trailer or something and put it in front of his face, and then you're away.
I'll buy it.
For me, it was definitely Marion Rabbids this year. I think the concept, I didn't really see the kind of leaks and stuff like that I know were kind of fairly prevalent back in the day as a kind of, what is this? This is crazy. But the closer to the game, I suppose that we got, the more excited I was about it, and then to actually play it, and particularly on the Switch on the go, that's the absolute winner for me. And then The fact that I was able to engross myself in it so much that I was at risk of missing my stop on the train, I think that's not something that happens often from a gaming point of view. So I think that's a real surprise. And plus, it kind of has turned me back towards XCOM 2 as well, to play the expansion over the Christmas break, because that kind of turn-based tactical play has it scratched that itch a little bit and then forced me back towards it, which I think is really good.
I need to pick that up.
Yeah, I might have to give that a try, because maybe some sort of like less serious take on strategy turn-based stuff is what appeals to me in that genre.
There's actually a surprising kind of amount of tactical depth to it, in the sense that you would think that you just have to blaze your way through and just attack everything head on or whatever to an extent, or like every enemy is a certain way and therefore it's all really straightforward, because there are only maybe about 5 or 6 enemy types, and then they have a different element to them in each level. So one's ice, one's fire, etc. So you start to get a little bit kind of cocky at times, and then suddenly it kind of pounces several different iterations on you at once, and you're overwhelmed, and you find yourself redoing a section or a game lots of times to kind of work out what the best team setup is, because it's kind of strangely restrictive in how it only lets you choose one. You have to have at least one rabbit in your party. So you can't just have Mario, Luigi, and Peach, for example, and have them trotting about. No, it's definitely Ubisoft and
yeah, I was going to say that's definitely because Ubisoft made it and they know that everyone's just going to choose all Mario characters. It's like, you've got to take at least one of ours. That's the deal.
Yeah, it's a really weird contractual obligation loophole thing to have.
Have you tried any of the first DLCs out now, isn't it?
I haven't actually, but I think it's mostly challenge related rather than like I say story in very, very strong inverted commas, but I mean new level expansion stuff. The challenges kind of have more limited appeal, in the sense that once you've got the knack of what you need to do, it's just about executing it and reiterating on the formula. Almost, what I imagine to some people Dark Souls is, in the sense that you're kind of like working out a strategy very gradually by making these mistakes and then going back over and over it. And that's what the challenges are like. Whereas the actual game is a bit more forgiving. So, I haven't dipped back into the DLC, but there you go. Looking forward to 2018, I thought we could have a little, well, not necessarily just 2018. There's a few things left to come out this year, but I thought it'd be interesting to see what you guys are looking forward to coming out. For me, I would say probably State of Decay 2, because I've not played the first one and have been quite intrigued by the kind of initial coverage of the release of it. The trailer, though, was pretty poor and uninformative. It was only reading around it that I found out that that there are kind of 100 different characteristics which NPCs can have. So, for example, like someone can have really be like a stunt man in their day job, so have really kind of good dexterity and stuff, but they snore at night, so you can't have them sleeping next to someone who is a light sleeper or whatever. It's really weird, like minuscule kind of management related stuff, and that kind of I don't know, it appeals to me for some reason. So I guess that's what's intriguing me at the moment, and particularly because it is an Xbox exclusive, as much as zombies are very much not an exclusive to anyone. I think it should be interesting to see how that kind of that pans out.
I think you'll really enjoy State of Decay 2. So you were the one in the group really that's sort of really taken to Conan Exiles, and State of Decay 2. Well, State of Decay 1. Obviously, I've not played the sequel. Is undoubtedly the best survival game I've ever played. So
there you go. Strong recommendation there.
Like I say, if you've taken to Conan Exiles, I think you will adore State of Decay 2.
Yeah, on that note, actually, we have Conan Exiles isn't gone and dead forever. In fact, it looks pretty good on Xbox One X, as it happens, partly because it looked kind of so rudimentary before. It makes quite a big difference. But we'll get back to that at some point when I've worked out what we can do next.
Does it play better?
The rest of you? It's definitely more stable than it was before. But I mean, everything. The only way is up with something heavily in game preview like that one is. But yeah, what about the rest of you?
For me, I think I'm not that hyped about Far Cry 5. If you want one that I'm not really excited about, just out there, because it's just going back to like
definitely building on the theme of positivity. Thanks, Liam.
Yeah, sorry. I really liked Far Cry Primal and how they took it in a different direction. I was really hoping they do that again for the next, like kind of like a Assassin's Creed thing, just pick a different era and go for it. But they've gone back to modern bit. But anyway, I'd still like to see Virtual Console on Switch. I really hope that's going to happen next year for like GameCube support and things like that. That would be great to see. That's pretty much it for me. That would be it. If they release that, I'm happy. Everything else is a bonus.
I think for me, probably Red Dead Redemption 2 and Crackdown 3 are the biggest ones I'm looking forward to.
Oh yeah, Red Dead 2. Sorry.
Yeah, that's if it does release next year, it could get delayed. But I'm also not excited about Far Cry 5 at all either.
Well, I would echo that as well, just to continue to pan this game that none of us have played. But I think the setting.
No, actually, to be fair, I've played
beg
it.
to differ from. Oh, have you?
Yeah.
How was it?
And it was my least. Yeah, it was my least. No, it was my least favorite.
Oh yeah, it was from EGX. It was the letdown one.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
I actually find the setting and the characters quite interesting, but other than that,
the theory of it does intrigue me a little bit. But I haven't played any Far Cry games, so I was waiting to really be arrested by it and drawn in, but it let me down. But that was more of a technical thing, so that might be something that they've ironed out by then. Who knows? But what about Crackdown and Red Dead are you particularly looking forward to, Chris?
I love the first Red Dead Redemption, the whole cowboy theme and that. And well, with Crackdown, I really liked the first one, and I thought the second one was trash. But just the amount of destruction and stuff on the multiplayer, I thought looked really good.
See, I keep forgetting about Crackdown. I played the first one.
It's been delayed that much by now. It's sort of vaporware.
Was it 2014, 2013, something like that? It was originally talked about.
Okay. Firstly, the PlayStation suite of exclusives. I'm excited for pretty much across the board. So God of War, Spider-Man, Days Gone, the one from David Cage that I'm forgetting the name of.
The co-op
Detroit.
Detroit. Yeah.
Then coming up soon in January, we've got Monster Hunter World. I've never played a Monster Hunter game, but I'm quite intrigued by this one. And everyone's always said they're really hard to get into.
There's loads of positive buzz about it as well, isn't there? I've seen lots of stuff on that.
Like I've always got the impression and heard that it's sort of puts up walls and isn't really accommodating for newcomers. But apparently this one is the place to jump in. So that sounds good.
Cool.
State of Decay 2, as you said, I'm also excited for. Metro Exodus.
Oh yeah.
Code Vein, which is I'm very sad that Dark Souls is over now, and that's sort of Bandai Namco's spiritual successor type thing to it. Though it's anime.
Okay.
The anime-ness sort of puts me off, but I'll give it a go. Darksiders 3, Skull and Bones, which is the Ubisoft pirate game, sort of like Assassin's Creed Black Flag without Assassin's Creed.
There's a lot more than I remember. I think that's just my old age, but
the System Shock remake, which I backed on Kickstarter, full disclosure there. But I love BioShock. I've never played System Shock, but they're a spiritual predecessor, so I'm definitely up for trying that out. Psychonauts 2 should be coming out in 2018. A Way Out, which is Joseph Farr's game. Do you know Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons?
Oh,
It's his next game. You probably remember it from E3, the Prison Break co-op thing.
Oh, that is the co-op one. I knew that was somewhere in my mind.
Yeah. I like the look of that. And then potential stuff for next year, but I don't think it's confirmed for 2018. The Last of Us Part 2, Death Stranding, and Beyond Good and Evil 2.
Yeah, they could easily, for Beyond Good and Evil 2, they could easily drag that out for a few years.
I think they said, there should at least be a multiplayer beta or something coming next year.
Okay. Interesting.
Your mention of the backing the System Shock remake, that reminded me of the one I backed, Battalion 1944. I'd like to see more of that. I don't know when that's coming. They've gone dark. I got the last email I got from them was saying that we're basically going to be going dark for a while we just get our heads down and try and get this ready. But there's still I've still no idea when that's coming out. I assume next year, hopefully.
I'm still
'Cause that
waiting
would
to
be
get
cool to see.
my physical copy of Friday the 13th, which I backed.
Oh yeah.
When was that?
Oh, I backed it years ago now. But the game's been out
Years
for
ago.
ages. Yeah, back when I was a wee boy. But the game's been out for ages. To be fair to them, they said that as the physical release was delayed, they gave everyone a download code, but I gave that away on Twitter. So I'm still waiting on the physical version.
Man of the people, Sam.
Yeah.
Everyone.
See, my one they can't take away because it's my name in the credits. That was my reward.
Yeah, I should be in the Friday the 13th credits, but obviously I gave the game away, so I can't
You'll
check
never know.
until it comes.
They could have screwed you twice.
Possibly.
Oh, imagine if there's just a splash screen at the end saying Sam Sant, who we hate, has been cut from this. Oh, man.
I was also going to ask a question. You were mentioning about the PlayStation exclusives coming.
Yep.
Do you reckon we'll start to see any of these turning up on Switch? Things like what was it, Nier Automata? Is that one? That's one of the ones that looks really interesting to me. And I mean, this Nintendo always sells well in Japan, and I think I've seen it. I guess the Switch is selling like crazy over there. Do you think that's the and it can handle? You know, if it can handle Doom, it can handle pretty much most games that run on PlayStation and Xbox now in some form. Do you think they're going to start turning up on Switch? Because it seems like it's going to be too big a platform to ignore, especially for Japanese developers.
I think there's potential as things like Nier Automata and Neo have made the transition to PC. Obviously, console is quite a different thing because they like to say console exclusive. They don't so much care that it's on PC. But Sony are going to be publishing a game on the Switch.
Okay.
Ooh.
So
Exclusive behind the scenes information.
Potentially.
Okay. So that
Something
opens
could
up
happen there.
Yeah, possibilities. Because I mean, I don't think you're ever going to see things like Uncharted turn up on the Switch. That's a Sony.
Oh no, 100% not.
No.
But I mean,
yeah, you're right. Some of the fringe stuff, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, that does PC as well. Because I guess as long as it's not on Xbox for them, they're fine with it. But
stuff like Neo is developed by Team Ninja, who are typically third party. They are not Sony owned. So, you know, because I think that there is the potential with that kind of thing.
I would like to see that. I think. So maybe that could be one of my things for next year as well.
Who knows? Perhaps Liam will be unwrapping a fresh copy of the game on Switch this time next year
on Switch
for Christmas.
That would be excellent.
And that pretty much is all the time we have this evening, or day, night, afternoon, whenever you happen to be listening to this. Thanks very much for tuning into our little podcast, and thanks very much for being part of our wonderful community through this year. It's coming up on, now I can't do maths, our fourth birthday in February. Is that right? I've lost track. It's like 2014 or something like that.
It's one of the other, third or fourth.
Yeah.
I think
so.
Fourth.
Yeah, so that sounds like a long time. So there you go. The fact that we made it so far, hopefully we make it to February. But yeah, now I've said that and jinxed it. Damn. Anyway, thanks very much for listening, and be sure to subscribe for more from Pass Controller and all that jazz. And we will do a proper or more substantial Games of the Year type piece from us through December to see you guys through to Christmas and give you that excuse to pick something up in the January sales, perhaps with all those vouchers that you inevitably get from your family because they don't know what to buy you. But anyway, from me, that's it. And happy Christmas and New Year from me. Anything from you guys?
Have a good one. See you next time.
Merry Christmas.
Hope you all have an adequate Christmas.
Aim high.
There you go. Adequate Christmas is what that's what we want. That's the Christmas spirit right there. Well then, thanks everyone, and see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.